Thursday night, that big Republican debate, as we said, the most watched ever by a mile. 24 million people tuned in to watch those 10 candidates right there. Donald Trump, of course, dominated the headlines. Let's talk about that now on our roundtable, joined by the Bloomberg political team, Mark Halperin and John Heilman, our own Donna Brazile, Sarah Fagan, Republican strategist, also CNBC contributor, and our own Matt Dowd. And Matt, I'm thinking so many people tuned into that Donald Trump, every headline since the debate. 3 weeks ago, he attacks John McCain on his war record. A lot of predictions that he's going to fall. He doesn't. You heard him this morning, full speed ahead. Is he deluding himself or right?
Well, Donald Trump, as we've discovered, is very unshameable. He can't be shamed in the course of this, and I'm sorry doesn't seem to be a part of his lexicon. I think Donald Trump represents a whole group of voters that are totally disaffected from both parties who are sick and tired of the Washington establishment. But for me, I think there's three things about this that Donald Trump represents. A blending of entertainment and political news that we've arrived at, where selfie replaces seriousness. Two, the idea that we have a bombastic, bitter, and belligerent culture that exists in politics today, and he seems to represent that. But three, more importantly, I have total confidence in voters who always do this in the course of this. They'll sort through this, they'll figure it out, and in the end, both parties will nominate a competent person that could be president.
You're nodding your head, Sarah. You have seen more Republicans willing to call him out now.
They are willing to call him out. But this just feels like that summer fling in high school that your parents tell you not to do, but you can't help yourself. But by the time we get back to school, I think Donald is going to be fading well into the background of this race. And what was great about that debate was there were really strong candidates on that stage. The governors, I thought, particularly did well. Marco Rubio did well. And any number of them are going to take on Hillary Clinton, and 24 million people were exposed to them.
And we do want to talk more about the overall debate later on, but let's stick with Trump now for a minute. Mark Halperin, you heard him this morning, no apologies whatsoever, talking about his great record with women, pushing forward on the campaign. How do you think he pivots off of this?
My sources say he's going to try to pivot to what his strength is. He's going to start talking about jobs and the economy and trade. He's going to put out a series of position papers. And his campaign is more professional than people realize. They're doing more of the things of organizing, of gathering names, of thinking about an advertising strategy. So I think going forward, the establishment, the other candidates, the press, it's kind of an iron triangle saying Trump's dead, this is the beginning of the end. The people he's bringing in, the people he's attracting, I don't think he's going to go up necessarily after the debate.
That's the question.
But I'm not sure he's going to go down.
That's the question I was going to bring you, John Heilman. Has he now established a ceiling? He's walled off a lot of Latino voters, walled off a portion of the women's vote, probably after all of this. What is his ceiling?
Well, George, you probably remember I did a couple weeks ago, I went to New Hampshire and did a focus group with people who like Donald Trump a lot or leaning towards Donald Trump. And I gave them a lot of negative information about Trump, like to see if they knew single-payer health care, donations to Democrats.
14.25% tax.
All of that stuff. And they didn't care. They were not moved off their enthusiasm for Trump. In fact, they kept rationalizing and finding excuses.
That's his core supporters.
Yes, people who really like him. And I think, there's a chance that 20% may be his ceiling, but it may also be his floor, which is to say it's going to be hard for him to go much past that. But those people may stick with him for the long haul. And in a race with 16 or 17 candidates, 20% is enough to make a lot of trouble in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina if he sticks it out that long.
And Donna, Democrats enjoying watching this, but is it a little bit of a trap, I wonder, if Donald Trump hangs out there, gives the other candidates time to develop over the course of this summer fling?
Well, I also think those other candidates should be happy that Donald Trump is occupying so much space, because I think what I saw on Thursday is that many of them don't have foreign positions. They have a lot of sound bites, but not a lot of foreign positions. And we didn't get to hear that. Look, I think this is beyond politics. This is about common decency. And Mr. Trump attack, not just on Megyn Kelly, but other women, that will have a cumulative effect, not just on Mr. Trump, but also, I think, on the Republican brand.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought that the governors particularly were very substantive. Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, even John Kasich was fairly substantive. And you're right, though, as this campaign unfolds, there's going to be more substance to this race. And Republicans should feel very good about the breadth and of their talent right now.
George, I think the biggest mistake the Republicans on that stage made dealing with Donald Trump is somebody should have stood up and taken him on the women's issues that Megyn Kelly asked him about at the debate.
After the
This shouldn't be about oh, don't attack Megyn Kelly. This should be about don't attack Rosie O'Donnell, don't attack Michelle Obama, don't attack Wendy Davis in Texas. This is not just like defend your friends. Somebody should have stood up, not waited 2 days later and say, oh, by the way, Donald Trump should have done that on that stage and said a traditional value of Republicans or people should be respect of women.
George, I heard it that night when he said to Megyn Kelly, essentially, wait a minute, I've been treating you nice. I mean, he acted as if he was like, hey, if you don't be a nice girl, I'm going to get really mad at you. That was misogyny. And Matt is absolutely right. Someone should have spoken up at that time.
He just says that to men, too, all the time, not just to
Well,
women.
yeah.
Look, there are two scenarios.
Doesn't make it any better.
Right.
It doesn't make it misogyny. Right? There's two scenarios. One is Trump is a factor through Iowa. The other scenario is Trump disappears. What I think is the real story now in the second scenario, which most people think in the establishment is more likely, is who's prepared for that moment? Who's prepared for the scrutiny that will come? Who's prepared to have a message? Who's prepared to step up and get some of Trump's vote if Trump leaves the race?
That is the question we're going to address in our next roundtable. Thank you very much for setting it up.